When it comes to recent and modern discourse surrounding video games, especially newer ones, the focus is often shifted to depictions of women in games. How female characters are designed, and what has changed now when we compare them to designs from older games. If you are at all aware of conversations like these in online spaces like Twitter or YouTube, then you know that this is a conversation that gets very heated very fast. I have weighed in on this topic myself several times, and this is something that I like discussing and giving my opinion on because I feel like not enough women in this space feel like they can be honest. And the reason for that is exactly what I just mentioned. The conversation gets heated very fast, all sorts of labels and mean words get thrown around. It's not really something that most people want to deal with, understandably. Lucky for you guys, I don't really care, so I'm gonna say it anyway. One of the stupidest and most hollow arguments that you will hear when you bring up the fact that there has been a very obvious change in how women are depicted in video games is that you are wrong for criticizing it and you just want female characters to fit into your hyper-femme fantasy of fuckability. This is a real comment that I got, by the way, on my World of Warcraft video where I talk about how Liadrin does not look like a blood elf, or how she doesn't really fit that specific already well-established look that we've grown accustomed to for years. One thing that is said to me over and over again whenever I bring this up is that I just want to pander to Gooners, and that unless video game characters look like porn stars, they're apparently not good enough for me. I find it so hypocritical and ironic that the people that accuse me of these sorts of things are the ones that are bringing this conversation into some very vulgar and sexual places. It is incredibly harmful to equate femininity to a term like fuckability. It's weird, and it suggests that presenting as more feminine is this thing that solely revolves around being more attractive to men, and that it cannot just be a thing where women express themselves in this way for the sake of expressing themselves in this way. I've already said this in my Why I Only Play Old Games video, where it's starting to feel a lot like femininity and the term in itself, especially in gaming, is becoming this like inherently evil, vulgar thing. With comments like this, my point is proven. For some reason, calling for more feminine characters that aren't big, strong, muscular girl bosses or haven't had their appearance visibly toned down from their real-life models is seen as equal to asking for something really offensive and crass. Demonizing people for speaking about it is wrong. Pretending that being more drawn to conventionally attractive characters is anything but human nature is also wrong. And I do think that there are definitely things that can be unhelpful in this discussion, like that one meme that somebody made with the character from Ghost of Yotai where they added the really exaggerated chest and said, "This is made for gamers." But I see that and I don't personally take this seriously. I actually think that this is more than likely satire. It's a sort of a rage bait that people seem to fall for every time. I just know that Reddit had a field day with that one. Now, first of all, conventionally attractive does not necessarily mean sexy, but on the topic of sexy game characters, I did do a video about this very topic a while back. How do women really feel about them in games? So this is something that I actually talked to my mom about as well, but also just based on the comment section from that video, the thing that I've gathered is that what we really want are options. We want the option to be able to run around in a chainmail bikini or go full coverage plate armor, epic medieval knight style. You know this is true even if you look at the sort of transmogs that girls do for their World of Warcraft characters. And I think that's super fair. And you know what game had options? The original Oblivion. Remember my video on censorship in the Oblivion remaster where I showed the changes in clothing and armor that were made to appear less feminine on the female body? The part about them making chests smaller, taking away the things from female bodies that we literally cannot help having in favor of that more androgynous look. One comment that I got on that video was that it's good that they got rid of that stuff, especially the boob armor, because that didn't exist in real life and that doesn't make any sense. And you know what? That's a valid conversation to sit down and have, especially if you're going for a game with more historical accuracy in terms of things like armor, and that is something that I can totally get behind. But in taking certain options away, you do just that. You take away options. You see, in the original Oblivion, not every armor set changed on female characters. The steel armor set, for example, was the exact same on both genders. But if you really wanted that weird fantasy game look for female characters with the boob armor, you could have it as well. Sure, it's not practical, but none of this is real anyway, and if we start talking about practical, how about we don't mention the glass armor and how that would fare in the real world? But the armor change, along with all of the obvious changes to make chests smaller and less apparent or covered completely, told me everything that I needed to know. It sends the message that the female body is this bad thing that we should cover up. We shouldn't bring any attention to it, and the only valid female characters are the ones that are fully covered and look like they could take down any man with their bare hands. And look, there are times when that sort of thing can be really cool. I love a Brienne of Tarth moment. I think that she's such a cool character. No, she wasn't traditionally feminine, and yes, she was physically way stronger than the average woman and man, but there was a story to tell there. She was an interesting character who had this alternative take on femininity, and I didn't feel like she was that way just because. There was so much meaning there. But when every single character is made to be a sort of Brienne of Tarth, it loses its meaning. It stops being interesting and special, it gets boring. At that point, it does feel like it's being done specifically to send some kind of message. It's actually insanely ironic just how conservative the standards have gotten when it comes to female game characters, especially in things like the Oblivion remaster, for which, funny enough, I got called a conservative for pointing it out. But people were praising the changes made in the remaster as if the original Oblivion was somehow this hypersexual game with a lot of focus on the female body, a Gooner game, if you will. But it wasn't. For me pointing out that there was nothing wrong with this, I got labeled all sorts of things. And honestly, real talk, if you have a problem with this, then I don't see you as any different than the bottom feeders from over at 4chan who come into my comment section and say things like I'm prostituting myself for views when I wear a lower cut top in the video. You guys are two sides of the same coin. In trying to tone down female characters and then having visceral reactions when a studio makes a character in a more revealing outfit, what we're actually ending up with are easily forgettable and generally bland designs for female characters. It's kind of like studios are afraid to make more appealing female characters. Again, easily forgettable, not a lot of effort put into their design. But even going away from like the revealing outfits conversation, I don't think that an appealing female character needs to have a super revealing outfit. A character that I always bring up in these conversations is Jade from Beyond Good and Evil. She definitely has a more alternative take on femininity. She's more of a tomboy, shorter hair, unconventional color lipstick, but she sticks with you. You remember her. It's a character that's appealing not because she's this really sexy, hyper-feminine being, but she clearly is a female character that was designed by a person who has a positive attitude towards women. And that really shines through. She is strong in ways that don't necessarily mean that she has to be super jacked and she can wield a warhammer, but she's smart and that's part of gameplay. You are encouraged to find ways other than physical fighting to progress, and she does a really good job with all of that. I've kind of gone from making female characters less sexual to making them super bland. More and more I find that female characters are turning into background character number 4. And it is in part because we're on this really weird crusade against these elusive Gooners that seem to be ruining everything. I don't know why I should care that somebody, God forbid, is attracted to one of my favorite female characters. Like, that's none of my business really. It doesn't affect me that somebody's over there like drooling over a particular character. But I'm enjoying it because games are meant to be fun. Part of the fun are appealing game characters, because then you have cosplayers who take on the character and show their interpretation of it. And cosplay is such a great thing in my opinion because it really is open to everybody, no matter your race, no matter what shape or size you are, no matter what your background is. I remember seeing this TikTok from a plus size creator who was cosplaying a character from the anime One Piece. Don't quote me on that because I haven't watched One Piece, but I believe she was cosplaying Boa Hancock. Somebody in her comments said, well, actually, you look more like this character and you probably should have done this cosplay instead. Again, I don't watch anime, I haven't watched One Piece, so I'm not sure exactly who they were referring to, but I know that the character that they brought up is fat. The creator responded by saying, just because I'm plus-sized does not mean I always have to cosplay fat characters. And yeah, she is 100% right, because that's not what cosplay is. This idea that attractive characters are somehow harmful and they're not for everybody is absurd. Deep down, all of us want to look good. For me, like, that's part of the appeal of cosplay, getting a character who's really attractive, dressing up as this character, and seeing myself in that character. Appealing game characters inspire people, no matter what they look like or who they are, to come up with something, their own interpretation of said character. This whole thing of not appealing to someone's fantasy or the male fantasy, in the long run, is actually perpetuating an unhealthy attitude towards women. Not allowed to have attractive characters because the Gooners might like them. Blaming attractive female characters because men are attracted to them. Just think about that for 1 second. At the end of the day, there is a conversation to be had here, absolutely, but the Gooner game argument is unproductive, unintelligent, and it does way more harm than good. There is this idea that women somehow cannot have this opinion that I'm expressing in this video, and that if we say these things, we're just pandering to somebody. Because how could I possibly form this original opinion without your permission? Video games are art, video game characters are art. It's also valid to criticize the art for very obviously approaching female character design with this caution against the Gooners that in actual fact is creating a hostile attitude towards femininity. Whatever side of this argument you're on, you are entitled to your own opinion. You don't have to agree with me. One thing that I will stand very firmly on is that equating femininity, just the simple concept of femininity without sexual attraction, without all of that, equating it to something really vulgar and using terms like fuckability and Gooner game, especially when you're shown examples of something really tame and just like elements that women really cannot help having. When you use such harsh language to describe all of that, you are part of the problem. That's my take on the situation. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please be sure to leave a like and subscribe. I really appreciate it. As always, huge shout out to my channel members, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Be seeing you. Bye.